I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
For your life is in His hands. Listen.
You don't have to worry, and don't you be afraid. Joy comes in the morning, troubles they don't last always. For there's a friend in Jesus, hallelujah, who will wipe your tears away. And if your heart is broken, just lift your hands and say, oh, I know that I can make it.
I know that I can stand.
I know that I can stand.
No matter what comes my way.
No matter what may come my way.
Jesus, my life.
My life is in your hands.
I'm Tavis Smiley. That's Kirk Franklin. We are playing the best of Kirk Franklin all 3 hours of our program today as we continue our celebration of June as Black Music Month. And Black folk have put their imprimatur musically on everything from gospel to hip-hop to R&B to jazz to folk and beyond. And so all this month we've been celebrating the best of Black culture vis-a-vis the music on the soundtracks of our lives. And so today, our featured artist in all 3 hours of our program is Kirk Franklin, and that's why you're hearing Kirk right about now. In this hour, two conversations. On the B side of this hour, imagine traveling through 6 of the 7 continents, singing with Michael Jackson, Elton John, Tina Turner, Diana Ross, Quincy Jones, and a who's who of other music luminaries. And then, after all that, raising 3 young Grammy-nominated artists of your own. Such is the life of Jackie Gouché, who joins us live in the studio on the backside of this hour to talk about raising kings. We commenced this hour, though, in conversation with Laura Marques Brown about the impact of ecological trauma on Black and brown folk and what impact that trauma has then on our relationship, or lack thereof, with nature and the outdoors. I am pleased to welcome Laura to this program. Laura, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Tavis.
It's a great honor to have you. Glad we've got these 30 minutes to unpack this to the extent that we can. When we talk about, let me just jump right in. When we talk about ecological trauma, we've had any number of conversations about trauma and the mental health of our people. And it seems to me that with all that we are enduring these days, one can't have too many of those conversations, but this is slightly different. We're talking in these 30 minutes about ecological trauma. So when I use that phrase, what do I mean? What are we talking about here?
So when I hear ecological trauma, when I talk to my clients about ecological trauma, when I'm training clinicians, especially white clinicians, about ecological trauma, we're talking about colonial trauma. We're talking about genocide. We're talking about the displacement and removal of indigenous people from their land. We're talking about, Black people being shipped across, removed from their home, removed from their original homeland, and, completely displaced and put into foreign spaces, made to work, made to produce on behalf of white bodies. So we're talking about the legacy of white supremacy, and we're also talking about the stories that not only, intergenerations later, Black bodies, Indigenous bodies, Hispanic bodies, queer bodies hold as a result, but also like how do those stories stay in the soil? And so then how do we repair in a safe reciprocity with the soil when we go back to nature to do some healing-based work?
It's a powerful frame. It's a powerful phrase. When you say those stories stay in the soil, unpack that phrase for me and I'll move forward from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea, right, as a trauma therapist, one of the first things that I do with a client who I am meeting out on a farm where I work is I name the indigenous territory that we're at, right? So it's this immediate perspective of where are we and who has been here and who was here first. And when we do that, we recognize that there's stories and lives and ancestral energy on the land. And we feel that when we're there, and we're in communion with that. And so this idea of like when people come and then they're in their story, they're in their life, they got their kids, they got their job, they got the things they're working on in therapy. Those two stories come together as two systems in much need of nourishment that have likely been neglected for centuries, for generations.
Mm-hmm. So when as I listen to you, and I'm just trying to press you on this to get the best out of you. When I listen to you, I can easily see how our Native American brothers and sisters could suffer from ecological trauma and how that would impact their relationship with nature and the outdoors, or certainly attempt to impact their relationship with nature and the outdoors. But make the case for Black folk for me in that regard.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look back to the way in which, Black folks have been segregated out of natural spaces. I think there's a study, and I'm not getting the dates right here, but I think in like 2007, a study came out about the amount of people that are Black people that are taking up space in national parks. And it's something like 7% of the total visitors each year. Mm-hmm. That's not an accident, right? Like that is continued legacy of segregation and Jim Crow, right? You look back at, and not even that, if you look at communities like programs like Outdoor Afro. Have you heard of this program before?
I have not.
Yeah, so Outdoor Afro is a Black leadership program across the country. Organizations in every major city has a headquarters of Outdoor Afro. So the Black folks coming together to be in nature together, to go on hikes, to commune, to have joy in nature, to reclaim their space in nature. And Katina Graves, who's one of the leaders out of the, I believe, the Bronx area, mm-hmm. She talks about a lot of Black folks will say, I don't like to be outside because, I get sweaty, or I don't like the bugs. And it's like, sure. And some of that is historical memory of the fact that we were removed from a lot of outdoor spaces. Pools were segregated, parks were segregated, right? And so that's that legacy. That's that kind of ecological trauma in Black space. And I don't identify as Black, so I'll name that. I am a Brazilian American white passing, right? And so that's why I will often talk about the Black experience through the people who have taught me, my Black mentors and colleagues.
Nope, I received that. And that still makes this conversation worthy, so don't worry about that. Her name is Laura Marques Brown. We're talking about the impact of ecological trauma on Black and brown folk and what impact that trauma has on our relationship, again, or lack thereof, to nature and the outdoors as we move into summer all across the country. We'll talk more about it when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
To talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though?
Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com or call 213-978-1845.
Buying your dream home can be exciting, but it might take some sacrifice. But don't worry, Rocket is here to give you a hand. If you buy with Rocket Homes and finance with Rocket Mortgage, you could get up to $10,000 cash toward closing from Rocket Mortgage. That's a big deal. Why not see how Rocket can help you start your legacy? You got this, and Rocket's got you. Only with Rocket. Visit onlywithrocket.com to get started.
For purchase transactions only, must like rate between 331 and 831. Call 8337 Rocket for conditions and restrictions. Class A rental license in all 50 states. MLS Consumer Access. Out number 3030.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Ho! Brothers and sisters, I want to welcome you back to life. Back to the one that can make your next chapter your best chapter. Hallelujah.
How can it be that you love the most unlovable part of me? How could you see your life was the only gift I'll ever need to be free? It's amazing with you. I win even if I lose. Everything's working for my good for always.
Come on.
He saves the day. He will come through. You all know that's not what superheroes do.
I'm Tavis Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the soulful sounds of Kirk Franklin as we continue to celebrate June as Black Music Month with a featured artist every day of our program, all 3 hours. And today that artist is Kirk Franklin on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Tavis Smiley. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. We continue our conversation now talking about ecological trauma, the impact that trauma has on how we interact or not with nature and outdoor spaces. Our guest in this hour is Laura Marques Brown, an ecotherapist who we are pleased to have on this program. I was thinking during that break, Laura, about the ways in which so many of us, it seems, I guess say weird, odd to say this, and yet it's as real as rain. There are African Americans who feel, for a variety of reasons, unsafe in the outdoors due to things like historical and present-day experiences of racism, discrimination, systemic barriers, and beyond. Barriers, that is, and beyond. What do you make of that, though? Here we are in 2023, and there are many of us who still feel, all across this country in various spaces, unsafe in the outdoors.
Well, I think that just points to, like, the legacy of colonization is alive and well, you know, especially when you think of, so the field that I work in, right, is ecotherapy, and it's a mental health field. Racism is alive and well in mental health. I'm here to unfortunately say that. And that's why I take kind of like my role and my position as somebody who is a woman of color, but who's also white passing really seriously, because I think I have a privilege to push back on those who are, holding power in really harmful and disruptive ways. So one of the ways, right, for example, that we perpetuate this idea of like Black folks don't belong in nature is when you look at programs where, you've got wilderness therapy programs for at-risk youth. You've got, these swanky ecotherapy programs for folks with access and money and health insurance. It's like, how are we making these programs inaccessible for folks that don't have the resources? How are we making mental health, but then non-traditional modes like ecotherapy even less accessible? And part of the problem is what you see represented in media, what you see represented out there in magazines like Outdoor, right? Or Outside, excuse me. And it's this Eurocentric representation of who belongs in nature as this white, cis, heterosexual, fit body. And it doesn't have a lot of space for not only a conversation about, well, why is that the norm and why is that the dominant representation, but it also just excludes anybody who might be curious to explore their relationship to nature. It makes them feel inherently marginalized and inherently unsafe. So I'll say that piece. I could keep going, but
no.
Leave some room.
Let me ask you. I like that. Leave some room as we're talking about the outdoors. That was cute. Let me ask you whether or not there are, to your mind at least, nature-based experiences that can help Black folk reconnect with their cultural heritage, and promote some sense of resilience in the face of this ecological trauma.
Absolutely. So I mentioned Outdoor Afro. That's one that I would just shout out to folks if they're interested in, a non-clinical, meaning you're not necessarily going to get a trained therapist in that space, but you certainly are going to find community, and you certainly are going to find safety, and you certainly are going to find healing relationship and joy and the reclamation of Black bodies in nature in that space. If you're looking for, some spaces where maybe there's a little bit more ecotherapy, right? One of my dear colleagues and friends, Phoenix Smith, started the Alliance for Social Justice and Ecotherapy. Highly recommend checking them out. They recently launched the Liberation Ecotherapy training for people who are inspired to hold space for others in terms of nature and healing. And that actually isn't, you don't have to have a mental health degree if you're interested in doing that work. So that just recently launched, I think about, 2 months ago almost. So that's really exciting work as well. And then if you want to understand a little bit around the piece of white body supremacy specifically, Resma Menacom's work, who is a therapist and author and activist out of St. Louis, that is definitely a place to start as well, reading some of his books.
As you were talking, you were answering my question about whether or not there are nature-based experiences that can help Black folk reconnect with our cultural heritage and promote resilience while we try to navigate our ways through this sort of ecological trauma. As you were answering that question, my mind went to the brother who was the bird watcher in New York City. I think I just saw it come across my desk the other day. He has a book coming out, and I'm looking at Jay. Is that correct? Yeah. He has a book coming out, and we've invited him on this program to discuss his new book. But we all recall the story of the brother who was in the park in Central Park in New York City, and a white woman had her dog run around off leash, which is not the way it's supposed to be done in Central Park. And you all recall seeing the videotape of what happened. She went full bore. She went Karen to the wall with it, right? And started genuflecting and acting scared and dialing the police on her phone and lying and saying she was threatened by this black man. All he's doing with his binoculars is watching birds. You all recall that videotape. So he has a book coming out. So hopefully he'll be on our program here in the not too distant future. I say all that to say that even in late modernity, there are ways in which Black bodies are treated as unwelcome. The way Black people are disinvited, not invited to hang out in certain outdoor spaces. What say you about that, Laura Marques Brown?
Well, I think it goes beyond unwelcome. I think that the reality and the legacy of white supremacy and colonization is that the black body is still metabolized by non-black bodies as a threat, particularly by white bodies. This is where I really try in my work to weave in the knowledge and wisdom of folks like Resmaa Menakem and the trauma work that he does around metabolizing, right, the legacy of racism and how a white body does that, how a black, indigenous, brown body does that. He goes as far as to say how police bodies react to traumatic retention in a system, in a community. And so when we're in nature and something that looks like it doesn't belong is there, right? Especially if we are white, we're white passing. How do we respond to that? And I think that's part of why I came into the work and I was like, oh, I need to be training white ecotherapists around their unconscious bias, around understanding their ancestry and getting to know, how they hold power. Mm-hmm. Because it's all often unconscious and it comes out through power manipulation, power over, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's a lot of what we saw in that video, how quickly, right, white tears became power over a black body.
Yeah. I love my audience because the minute I mentioned Birdwatcher, this audience is so smart. They heard me mention the Birdwatcher and didn't call him by name. And that was everybody's cue to send me messages about the Birdwatcher's name that I could not recall. Thank you all. There are about 25 of you that did it in 30 seconds flat. The Birdwatcher's name is Christian Cooper, by the way. His book is on the way out. And not only do I have his name, but my audience is telling me he has a TV show coming as well. So I ain't mad at the Birdwatcher. He came up. Christian Cooper came up. He's got a book coming out, got a TV show. I'm going to go watch me some birds this afternoon, take my binoculars, hope some white woman offends me so I can get the come up off of hanging out in the park watching birds. That's funny, but what happened to him is not funny. And it speaks to the brilliant point that Laura Marques Brown was just making a moment ago. But Christian Cooper is on the way up. Started from the bottom, now we're here, as Drake said. And we'll talk to Christian Cooper here in the days to come as his text drops. I guess the question I want to ask now is what are black people writ large to make of this notion of ecotherapy? And here's what I'm asking. I ask not to cast aspersion at all on what you and others do so brilliantly. But sometimes we are, as you well know, skeptical of science. And there are reasons for that, legitimate historical reasons for that. So what are black people to make of this notion of ecotherapy when it comes to the ecological trauma that we have been subjected to for many, many years?
Right. Well, I think, I can't speak for all people who are doing this work. I can speak for how I do this work. Sure. And it's rooted in decolonization, right? So I think part of decolonization is intentional disruption, right? Like, let's disrupt the norm. And so right away, having conversations with my black clients about, like, what is your experience with nature? How do you feel when you're outside? Hey, we're at a farm. There's a lot of white bodies around. What's going on in your head? Right? And like really normalizing a lot of the ways in which it's become that they are often the only black person at the farm in the middle of a bunch of programming that's going on. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece. That's just one piece. The other piece is, can we bring ancestral healing, ancestral wisdom? Can we bring spirituality into the work? And can we kind of get like less clinical in trusting things like energy and flow and what we feel intuitively when we're outside? Can we start to like give permission for different bodies to show up in different ways, for black folks to take up space outside, for white bodies to step back, right? I'm thinking about an experience I had in graduate school when I was getting trained to do what's called wilderness therapy, which I quickly divested from. And part of that journey was summiting a 10,000-foot peak, literally. And I was one of two folks of color and marginalized status. Everybody else was in a white body, and I was one of two people who couldn't make it to the top. What might it have been like rather than me be left behind to sit on my own watching my colleagues and friends summit the mountain while I watch their stuff. What would it have been like for my process or the other person of color's process to be centered, and instead for people to not climb to the top of the mountain and rather tend to our experiences of not feeling capable of climbing to the top of the mountain, for the hike to have stopped there? And I think that's where I'm like, I have so much heart and empathy for that response from Black folks, if it's there, of like, what is this ecotherapy BS? Like, tell me, keep it real, like, what is happening here? And it's where I also push the field to be like, why aren't we centering non-white experiences when we're outside?
So here's my exit question. I got 2 minutes left.
Sure.
And here's the exit question. One, what are Black folk to do who are afraid of the outdoors because going outdoors literally evokes painful memories? Memories on the one hand, and on the other hand, what are Black folk to do when they walk outside and they know they're going to be racially profiled or harassed in real time? Two sides of the same coin. Your final thoughts?
Absolutely. This is the decolonizing piece of ecotherapy. You don't have to go outside to have a relationship and a deep connection to nature, one, right? So if you don't have safe outdoor space, can you start by facing a window? Can you start by building an altar inside where you have a plant of significance, a nature object of significance, a feather, a rock, a pine cone, something tactile you can be in relationship with and quiet yourself around? That's one piece, right? Can you open a window? The other piece is around community, because this work, I think, is the most profound when it's done in community. That's why I would say if you are having a hard time finding safe outdoor space directly in outside of your home, reach out to places like Outdoor Afro. Build those relationships with organizations that are creating those spaces on behalf of Black and brown bodies and Black and brown people.
Appreciate the conversation. Appreciate the answers to those questions. She is an ecotherapist who knows her stuff quite well, as you can tell. Her name is Laura Marques Brown, who I'm delighted in having on the program for these 30 minutes. Laura, thank you for your work and witness. I can tell how much it means to you. I can hear the passion in your voice as you talk about it. And I'm delighted in having you on this program on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tavis. Have a great day.
Same to you. More when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports. You are listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A teenager who was shot after ringing the wrong doorbell in Kansas City says he's just a kid. Ralph Yarl spoke out for the first time on ABC's Good Morning America. He said he wants to keep doing things that make him happy and live his life without letting the situation bother him. The black 16-year-old was shot by an 84-year-old white man, Andrew Lester, who is now facing 2 felony charges. A new report shows the U.S. housing market continued to strengthen in April. The latest S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller 20 City Price Index rose nearly 1% last month. A combination of low inventory and high demand pushed home prices up overall nationwide. Miami, Chicago, and Atlanta saw the biggest price gains on the 20-city index. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
We have an accident in Long Beach on the 91 West at Paramount Boulevard. Your right lane blocked there with slowing coming away from Artesia Boulevard. It is busy on the 110 South Drive. At the 105, you've got a wreck clearing to the right shoulder with slowing from Century Boulevard. And in Carson, watch out for debris in the roadway, 405 northbound at Rosecrans Avenue.
Need an accident attorney by your side? All you got to do is call the accident guys.
Injured in a car accident or at work? Call the accident guys. Because unlike other firms, an attorney will negotiate your case, not a paralegal.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron James is hosting a film festival next month designed to promote films that empower athletes and their storytelling. The festival is July 13th at Newhouse Hollywood. One of the 2 films showcased in the festival is LeBron's Black Ice, a documentary about black hockey players dealing with racism. LeBron's company, Spring Hill Productions, produced the film. Black Ice opens in theaters on July 14th. The other feature film is Goliath, a Showtime docuseries about Lakers great Wilt Chamberlain. The film was produced by Content Cartel, a production company owned by NBA Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett. Garnett played the part of Chamberlain in a 1996 movie called Rebound, a film about a New York City playground legend named Earl the Goat Manigault. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Do you have heart failure and often hear,
"Those stomach issues ruined your birthday"?
"You're too tired to play catch, Grandpa."
Sweetie, you haven't touched your tools since the carpal tunnel syndrome diagnosis.
If these seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, talk to your cardiologist and ask about transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare and underdiagnosed disease that gets worse over time. Learn more at connecttoyourheart.com. That's connecttoyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Men, you fought hard for the role that you play in your children's lives. This Father's Day, Cordell & Cordell celebrates you the entire month of June. Join us every Friday for our live webinar series, Father's Fridays. There you'll receive much useful information from our panel of speakers. To register, go to CordellCordell.com/Father's Day.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. CordellCordell.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
I dedicate this song to recession, depression, and unemployment. This song's for you.
Today's a new day, but there is no sunshine. Nothing but clouds, and it's dark in my heart, and it feels like a cold night. Today's a new day, but where are my blue skies? Where is the love and the joy that you promised me? Tell me it's alright.
I'll be honest with you.
I almost gave up, but a power that I can't explain fell from heaven like a shower now.
When I think how much better I'm gonna be when this is over,
I smile, even though I hurt, see I smile. I know God is
what you do?
I smile.
Come on and
Smile. It's so hard to look up when you've been down. Sure would hate to see you give up now.
God's people.
You look so much better when you smile. So smile.
I'm Tavis Smiley. That's Kirk Franklin. I was just checking some messages during the break. And if I got one, I got a ton of messages. Who knew Kirk Franklin had so many hits? Y'all sleeping on Kirk. We've been playing Kirk, in case you've just tuned in, all 3 hours of our program today, because June, of course, is Black Music Month. And every day on this program, all 3 hours, we've been choosing a particular iconic African-American artist whose music is on the soundtrack of our lives, and we've been featuring their stuff all 3 hours of our program. And today, we pulled up Kirk Franklin. And some of y'all are surprised that Kirk has so many hits. And as Miles would tell you, we ain't scratched the surface yet. Kirk can put a show on. He can go the boss, Bruce Springsteen with it for 3 or 4 hours if he wanted to. But it's a beautiful thing to celebrate June as Black Music Month and to be able to feature jazz and gospel and hip hop and R&B and folk and all the music we featured all throughout this month. A few more days to go as we celebrate Black Music Month. And speaking of Black music, imagine traveling through 6 of the 7 continents, singing with Michael Jackson, Elton John, Tina Turner, Diana Ross, Q, our friend Quincy Jones, and a who's who of other music luminaries. And then, after all that, raising 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 young Grammy-nominated artists on your own boys. Such is the life of one Jackie Gouché, who joins us now for the remainder of this hour to talk about Raising Kings, which is the name of her book. Jackie Gouché, when you walked in, I gave you a big hug, and I told you, everybody I know knows you. When we posted you were coming on today, from Ren Brown to Angelique to tons of other folk who I know who are listening right now, I am sure, they all love you and swear by you, and so it's an honor to have you in studio.
It's an honor to be here.
You doing all right today?
I'm doing amazing.
JD, I don't know if you can get this. I'm going to hold this up right quick. Can you guys get this? This is the cover. A little higher, is that better? Okay. This is the cover for those watching on YouTube, on our app. This is the cover of Jackie's book. I love this photo. Jackie, tell me about the photo right quick.
That is me taking my babies to the beach 30 years ago, carrying a bag of fruit, and just doing what I did. That's the way. That speaks of the way that I raised them. You know.
I love the bag of fruit. That's it's you got some stuff in that bag.
I do.
And I love the three boys hanging out. Before I get to the boys, before I get to Raising Kings, what is it like when you get to tour the world? This audience knows I was a dear friend of Prince, and I miss him dearly, and was able to travel the world hanging out with him. Not singing, but just travel the world hanging out as part of his entourage, and hanging out late at night and talking all the way around the world, it seemed. But there you are with Michael and Elton and Tina and Diana and all these great luminaries traveling the world, 6 of 7 continents. Let me bask in your glory for a second. Just talk about that experience.
You know what? It was amazing. I didn't even realize how amazing it was at the time. You know, and as I look back on it in hindsight, I just feel so blessed because every name on that list, everything that I've ever been privileged to do.
And that's just some of them.
That's
There's
just
a long list of them.
Yeah, there's Chaka Kahn's missing on there. I toured with her. But every one of those jobs was not something that I went after. It was something that was presented to me or they called me for it. So it's like God always had his hand on me and just surrounded me with his favor. And you know, it started with my brother Andrew Gouché introducing me to Andre Crouch back in the day. And,
yeah. we could do 3 hours of Andre's.
Yes, we could.
Yes, we could. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Andre and Sandra would hire me for sessions. They hired me for the Diana Ross and the Quincy Jones. They did Johnny Carson with them. But it just was like, it just snowballed from that point on. I wasn't going out looking for this stuff. It just came to me. So I was blessed.
Yeah, I saw Andre's nephew the other night.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on his name right now. It'll come to me in a second. Yeah, I know. It'll come to us. Somebody will call me Ren. Somebody will call me and tell me, and I'm blanking. I've only met him a couple times, but he's such an amazing keyboardist.
Yeah.
And he was playing with Norm Lewis.
Yeah.
Norm did a show the other night. He was here for a Soldier's Play. And Norm did a show the other night that I popped into, and Mr. Crouch was accompanying him that night. And that Kenneth, that's it. He killed it.
Of course he did.
That Crouch family, we could just do Andre Crouch for 3 hours. But anyway, so there you are traveling the world, and since you went there, let me follow you. To what extent do you put your faith at the center of your success?
It is the center of my success. I was raised in the church, and I've always been a part of the Christian world. But however, in recent years, I've come to a greater understanding of it's not just about being a Christian, and going to church and doing all the things that our Christian culture, participates in. But it's about your connection with the Creator and your connection with God, and the fact that He's in us and He works through us, and He's like a lot of people try to do life without Him, and to me that doesn't make sense because He is in us, you know what I mean? And so my faith in God is at the core of everything that I do.
Yeah. Can you imagine the career that you have had singing with all these luminaries around the world had you not started singing first in a black church?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Can't imagine it.
Yeah.
No.
Tell me about the experience that you brought with you all these years, speaking of Andre and Kirk, the experience you brought with you all these years, stylistically and any other way you want to describe it, being rooted in the song stylings of the black church.
Yeah. I mean, it's a part of me naturally. My mom was the musician at her church. Her father's a pastor, so she grew up in church. And so church was always, it's just a part of who I am. And so I can't help but, use those techniques and those styles, in everything that I do. And it obviously it paid off because when I was introduced to Andre and Sandra, I fit right into what they were doing and what a lot of the artists were looking for, that sound. And they're looking for that sound, that gospel feel. So, yeah.
I've talked to so many over the years, from Ray Charles to Denise Williams. I can run the list. Discuss this with so many over the years, but not Jackie Gouché. That point in your career that arrives where you're getting calls from secular artists. You know where I'm going, right? Yeah. You're getting calls from secular artists, but you started out singing in a spiritual situation, shall we say.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that journey?
I didn't have a problem navigating it at all. I did have opinions, from the people in church. I was judged a bit, not a lot, but I never let it bother me because I've been blessed with the gift of I don't care.
All right, there's our line for the day. I've been blessed with the gift of I don't care.
Yeah. I don't care what people think.
Yeah. So you just moved on through it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Quincy, who you know well, they're doing 2 nights to honor Quincy's 90th.
Yes.
I hope to get to the bowl for one of those nights to see all the folk that are going to be there to honor Q. But Q told me many, many years ago, as I'm sure you've heard him say 1,000 times, Tavis, there ain't but 2 types of music: good and bad.
Right.
Q's like, I don't want to hear it. Ain't but 2 types of music: good music and bad music, and that's that. Her name is Jackie Gouché. She has been on stage with everybody you can imagine wanting to be on stage with on 6 continents. Ain't but 7 of them. 6 continents around the world. And after all that success, she can stick her chest out about these 3 boys, these 3 kings that she has raised, who are all Grammy-nominated. Miles, what did you say to? I asked you, introduced you to Miss Jackie when she walked in, and you said, "I know her well." What did you say to her?
I'm already a fan of her and her work, from her work to the work she did producing her son. So I'm nothing but respectful, and I'm honored to be here.
You saw them recently at where you at?
I saw them. They were at the Taste of Inglewood, Juneteenth. They gave D Smoke the keys, Sir performed, Davion came out, all that. It was a great time.
Yeah, so people know that.
And the city came out for you guys as family, man. They love you guys.
They did.
Yeah. They, as you can see at KBLA, we all know Jackie Gouché, and we all know her sons, and we'll talk about raising kings when we come forward with Jackie Gouché on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
The pandemic may be over, but many Angelinos could be at risk of losing the place they call home. It's important to know your rights as a residential renter in the city of LA. Did you know eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt that was due before March 31st, 2023? And that you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice, also known as an unlawful detainer. Learn more about your rental rights at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
If you're a business owner or lead a nonprofit that's between 26 and 49 employees, please listen. Lendistry is proud to announce a new program whereby small businesses and nonprofits may qualify for reimbursement of COVID sick leave expenses incurred in 2021 or 2022. This program is administered by the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. Eligibility criteria apply and funding is limited. For more information, visit COVIDPaidSick.com. If you're a business owner or lead a nonprofit that has between 26 and 49 employees, please listen. Lendistry is proud to announce a new program whereby small businesses and nonprofits may qualify for reimbursement of COVID sick leave expenses incurred in 2021 or 2022. This program is administered by the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. For more information, visit COVIDPaidSick.com.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
In 2020, California established the first in the nation task force to study reparations for African Americans. Their responsibility is to examine and recommend to the California State Legislature potential remedies of compensation, rehabilitation, and restitution for African Americans, with a special consideration for the descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. We encourage you to join the final meeting of the task force in Sacramento on Thursday, June 29th, starting at 9 a.m. in the first floor auditorium of the March Fong Yu Secretary of State building. To learn more about reparations and the task force, visit the California Department of Justice website at oag.ca.gov, where you can also get details about how to participate in the hearing virtually if you cannot participate in person on Thursday, June 29th for this final public hearing where the task force will present their final recommendations. For more information, reach out to Charles Communication Group at 888-326-0010. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley, recipient of the highest honor in the talk radio industry, the coveted Freedom of Speech Award. At Talkers 2023. Let's get back to more of Tavis right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
I see why all my friends love Jackie Gouché. We've been talking in the break, and now we're fast friends. I see why they love her. She's so delightful to talk to. You and I were talking during that break. I want to bring this now on the air.
Okay.
We were talking about the fact that because you've been in the industry your entire life,
yeah,
it wasn't until you were in your mid-40s
right,
that you actually paid to see somebody in concert.
Exactly.
You got all access.
Yes.
And who's the first person you bought a ticket to actually see?
The first person I bought a ticket to see is Anita Baker.
Anita Baker.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
It was.
Okay.
It was a different experience for me to be standing in line. And
you felt like a commoner, huh?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And then I didn't have a backstage pass, so it was
that's strange. That's strange.
Yeah.
And who else did you pay to see?
I paid to see India Arie.
And was
one
that
of my
worth
favorites.
it?
Oh my God, was that worth it? Yeah, she's one of the most amazing artists ever to me. She's like the female Stevie.
Yeah. And what do you make of the fact, since you went there, I'll follow you. What do you make of the fact that India is so gifted and so talented? I cast no aspersion whatsoever. Don't call me. I don't want to hear it. I'm not demonizing Alicia Keys, but they both came on around the same time, and you'll recall that you in the Grammys were Alicia. Look at Jackie turn her head.
I gotta be careful.
Yeah, we both got to be careful.
Yeah,
I ain't demonizing Alicia. She is technically proficient.
Yes,
she has a voice, and I'm not gonna dog her at all, like Alicia Keys. But that year they were up at the Grammys, and they've both been nominated for a bunch of stuff. Alicia won everything. India won basically nothing. But she is a journey woman, and her songwriting, her lyrical content, her voice, everything. I have always been bothered by the fact that India Arie does not get the love and respect that she deserves. That's just me, but you're the professional. What say you, Jackie Gouché?
That was the last year that I watched the Grammys.
Wow, I didn't know that was
until my son was nominated, and I actually went with him.
Right.
But I got mad respect for Alicia. She's a beautiful girl. She plays, which is rare. I mean, not a lot of women who play and sing at the same time. She's an amazing songwriter. However, that to me was it was just not truthful. It's like, okay, so what are we judging here? Is this a talent competition, or is it a beauty contest, or what's going on here? Because this music, and obviously this is a conclusion I came to, that the people who are doing the judging don't know music. They don't understand what they're listening to. When you hear somebody like India, the skill set, the lyrics she comes up with, and she does everything. Yeah. And then you deny her any recognition at that show. That to me was a slap in the face of music, a slap in India's face, as far as I'm concerned. And that's, like I said, I stopped watching the Grammys. I mean, and I do have to be careful because I have my own perspective.
I'll stop you.
Thank you.
I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm going to help you out so you don't get in trouble. We were also talking during that break. Again, some of the best stuff on this show happens during the breaks, and I try to bring it forward, or reprise it as best I can. But I was also talking to you during the break about the fact that I am troubled by two things with music today. One, speaking of Black Music Month, I'm searching for melody. I got a flashlight and a magnifying glass. I'm out looking for melody. Although Butterfly Black on this program yesterday, they're bringing back melody. Nice. Number one. But I'm also troubled by the fact, and there's nothing to do about it, but your generation was raised in the Black church, as we discussed earlier, and there's something that you had and have to draw on when you're on stage because of that experience. Yeah. Aretha's singing Jump to It. She's singing Respect. She's singing whatever she's singing. But she has so much to draw on from that Black church experience, that Black church training, and it makes her delivery different. It makes it more soulful. And I'm missing that today in many of the artists that are out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And you know what? People in church talk about anointing all the time. You know, it's like, and anointing doesn't just happen in church. Right. You know, people like Aretha were anointed to do what she did. And there's a lot of people, like you said, from my generation who have that connection with God, with our Creator, and that spirit that is not, it's not a religious thing. It's just God in us.
It's a spiritual thing.
Exactly. And that's, like you said, that's what's missing in a lot of the artists today. And the other thing, Tavis, is that the artists today, I think, don't really take responsibility for the influence that comes from their content. There's a lot of songs that is really influencing young women and young people to go down the wrong path. And artists need to understand the power of music and the influence they have over the entire culture. And a lot of them are unaware of it. No,
I think you're right. It's still pregnant with a lot of power. I received that. I got about 5 minutes left. Not enough time with you today. I got 5 minutes left, and I want to spend it talking about Raising Kings.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned earlier that Jackie has a book out. It's called Raising Kings. Her gift became her life, and she passed that gift on to her sons. I'm going to pass the mic to you, which you know how to work a mic. Yes, so in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
Okay.
Tell me about Raising Kings.
Well, you know what? It came from people constantly asking me, people who recognize my sons, and they asked me when they saw me, how did you do it? How did you raise these?
Let me stop. We should mention all three of your sons.
Let's just
get. Okay, so Miles did it, but let's just let you do it. You the mama.
Yeah. Okay, there's D-Smoke, who was the winner of the Netflix competition Rhythm and Flow in 2019. Then there's Sir, who is, just an amazing artist known around the world. And then there's Davion Ferris, who just signed to Def Jam. And so you'll be hearing a lot more of him from him soon. So D-Smoke, Sir, and Davion.
There you
Those
go.
are my sons.
All right. Now tell me about Raising Kings.
So, okay, let me just go back to when I was 7 years old, I started taking piano lessons. My teacher was awful. He used to pop my knuckles when I made a mistake. So I told my mom, I don't want to play the piano. She said, okay. Then when I got to high school, I was angry with my mother. I was like, why didn't you persist? Why didn't you just give me another teacher? I didn't know I was going to be a musician, So I'm trying to catch up 7 years. So I decided when I was 15 years old, when I have children, I'm going to teach them music, whether they want to learn it or not. And that's exactly what I did. So I started, when they were 3, 4, and 5, I had them standing around the piano, teaching them music theory and vocal technique and all of that stuff. And I had no idea that was going to be, that today, who they are, D-Smoke, Sir, and Davion, was going to be the result. But I took my position as parenting very seriously. I understood, and I don't know where I got this awareness from, but I understood that it was up to me to determine who my sons were going to become. Not in detail, I didn't know, but I just knew that I needed to give them everything I had. And so back to the point of writing the book, people kept asking me, how did you do it? So I decided to write the story. And, a lot of what's in that book, I tell the story of how I was addicted to cocaine when I was having those boys. And so there's a lot of God in there. There's a lot of miraculous stuff that happened because I just happened to have gotten high the morning D-Smoke was born. I had got high at 11 o'clock that morning, and at 8:30 that night, I gave birth to him. And you can look at him and see who he has turned out to be. So that's nothing but God. That's a miracle. And so that's the story of how the power of God worked through me to raise these amazing kids, giving me awareness and understanding that was like straight from him, because I didn't know how I knew all these things. I've learned since that the first 7 years of parenting is crucial. What you put in your children goes in their subconscious mind, and it becomes who they are. It writes their script for life. And so parents, my message, this is one of my messages. One of the messages is connect with your creator. The other one is parents, take your position seriously. Understand that you got 7 years to make those kids who they are. And I can look back and say I'm kind of proud of what I've done with those 3 men. And you can read all about it. There's a lot of great stories in that book. And
as I said, I can't do justice to it, even in an hour. If I had 3 hours, I couldn't do justice to it. But we have sufficiently teased the audience.
Yes, sir.
With what's in this book. It's called Raising Kings. Her gift became her life, and she passed that gift on to her sons, and all 3 of their names we now know and will get to know better, I am confident, in the years to come, because they were trained by their mama at the piano. And she did it well, and they are doing it just as well. And I know she hopes they'll take it even to another level,
yes, sir,
as any good parent would want. Again, her name is Jackie Gouché. The book is called Raising Kings. Jackie, all the best to you and your sons. Good to have you in this studio.
Thank you so much.
And just like that, 3 hours are gone. That's our program for today. Time now to make room for the KBLA Midday Money Chain. Up next, the Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson, to be followed by Ahead of the Crypto Curve with Najee Roberts. Old money, new money. Either way, we got you covered here on KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks for tuning in, and until tomorrow morning, Lord willing, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
We thank you for joining us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. After years of exhibit planning and millions spent on renovations, the historic A.G. Gaston Motel in downtown Birmingham, Alabama, is scheduled to reopen later this week.